What's up, guys? Welcome back to Smog for another SPL game. This time we've got GeeMick, who is playing his first SPL game of the season, versus Leftiez, Super Negrita. Leftiez has a quite an interesting team with the Venusaur sand balance thing going on. He has this colorful Firewater Grass core, Sand core, and Keldeo, I guess. I don't know, he has both Rotomosh and Keldeo. Looks interesting. Whereas GeeMick has quite an, it looks like a very nice offense team, but it's actually quite interesting because he has Lando-T and Garchomp, so you have to try to figure out which one of those is the rocker and which one is more offensive. Then he's got Mega Metagross and a Hoopa, which is like, it builds up quite a bit of a dark weakness, and then he has Starmy as well, so like 3 psychic types. So it kind of builds up a ghost and dark weakness, which I found was really quite interesting. But he does have the Breloom to check darks other than like Ice Shard Weavile, which seems like a big threat to GeeMick's team. In all honesty, Weavile seems like it can be a major problem. And wow, there we see Leftiez pull a switch into his T-Tar as the Hoopa, most probably Choice Scarf considering that it stayed in, psychics that Keldeo, and Leftiez gets off a pursuit on that Hoopa. So he's off to a really big start already. The Hoopa is incredibly weak, and the Hoopa is a major problem to Leftiez' team because if it clicks the right move, Leftiez' mons just die. He does have the benefit though that if Hoopa does not click Focus Blast, then the T-Tar can Pursuit Trap it. So this is looking, and also GeeMick's team looks quite a bit weak to Keldeo actually, because that Starmy is offensive. It's not going to be able to take multiple Hydro Pumps and Secret Swords, considering Life Orb damage, Sand damage, and the fact that there's a Tyranitar there, where if it's bulky, it can take Hydro Pump and Pursuit or crunch that Starmy. Plus, he has the Rotomosh to kind of check the Starmy as well as Venusaur if it's not Psyshock Starmy. But considering how GeeMick has 3 Psychic types, I don't think, and he also has somewhat of a weakness to Slowbro, he might be just Thunderbolt Starmy. But ooh, so let's see right here. Hold on, guys, I'll be right back in 1 second. Alright, guys, I'm back. So Leftiez pulls a switch into his Keldeo on the Garchomp, which means it can really threaten GeeMick's team. So he actually goes for a Hydro Pump. It does not kill the Garchomp. So now it's going to be at 31% and around 25% the next time it comes back in from Stealth Rocks, as GeeMick is able to get off a huge hit on the Keldeo. And he actually decides to save his Garchomp on a Hydro Pump miss, which is huge for GeeMick, because now he can keep his Starmie around quite much more easily. And he also gets to keep his Garchomp as Sack Fodder, which is really good for GeeMick. Now right here, Leftiez is it's really in a tight spot, because that Keldeo, looking at the Hydro Pump damage, it might, I mean, I don't know, it depends on the Chomp set. If it's Tank Chomp, then that's most definitely a Specs Keldeo, but I'm not sure on, I'm pretty sure that still would be Specs Keldeo, even if the Chomp was offensive, unless it was like a naive Chomp, which might be a possibility. But we actually see a Hydro Pump miss from GeeMick on the Rotomosh. That's probably well deserved, because I mean, he did dodge the Hydro Pump from the Keldeo, which would have been quite big to do some damage to that Starmie, and the Hydro Pump with the Analytic Boost on the Rotomosh really would have put it quite a bit lower. And right here, we might see a Will-O-Wisp or a Hydro Pump from, we actually see a Psychic from GeeMick, as, very nice play, because Leftiez, GeeMick did have the Garchomp to switch into a Volt Switch, and I was quite sure that Leftiez was thinking there they did not want to Volt Switch as the Garchomp Sack came in, and let the Rotomosh take damage, and that's actually really quite huge to hit that Psychic on the Rotomosh. Now it's in range for a second Psychic, and he does pull the switch to T-Tar. Does GeeMick Hydro Pump here? Come on, and we see a second Psychic, so Leftiez gets that play correctly, and his T-Tar's in on the Starmie. Now, if it is bulky T-Tar, which I'm assuming it is, it will be able to tank a Hydro Pump from the Starmie, and it can pursue the Starmie if it decides to switch out. Plus, if the Starmie goes for the Hydro Pump and takes Life Orb damage, it'll take the Pursuit, and if that somehow does not kill the Starmie, the Sand will take it out. So this is essentially checkmate for GeeMick, as he actually misses the Hydro Pump on the T-Tar as it goes for the Pursuit, and the Sand finishes off that Starmie. Now he can keep his T-Tar around quite a bit longer, and that Excadrill is becoming a bigger problem to GeeMick's team. Now he has to be very careful with his Lando-T and his Breloom, and Leftiez does have a Venusaur to check that Breloom, like essentially 100%. So GeeMick's in a tough spot now versus this T-Tar plus Excadrill. Also assuming that the T-Tar is the rocker, now it's much more likely that Lefties will somehow find an opportunity to set up Stealth Rocks with that Tyranitar. Perhaps on a Lando-T choice locked into Stone Edge, trying to hit a Talonflame, or like a Lando-T just coming in on the T-Tar and clicking U-turn but not killing it, something like that. But wow, that's actually quite insane. And oh my god, that Hydro Pump miss was quite big. I said the Hydro Pump miss from Lefty's end was big on the Starmy, but definitely the Hydro Pump miss on GeeMick's end was quite bigger on this T-Tar, as the Chomp comes in on this T-Tar. If it is bulky Chomp, it might be able to tank an EQ, but I don't think Lefties would want to risk that, because this could also be like a Life Orb Chomp. Yeah, I mean, it could also, like, Life Orb Chomp would make a more Talonflame weakness, but it also has the Lando-T, so I'm not really sure. It's really hard to tell when you see Lando-T and Garchomp, it's really hard to tell which one is doing which, unless you're like, I mean, in this case, because of GeeMick's weakness to Charizard X, I could very easily see, and the fact that he has Scarf Hoopa too, I don't know if he'd want to run double Scarf with Scarf Lando-T, Scarf Hoopa U, but I can definitely understand a bulkier Lando-T, but then this Garchomp used Stealth Rocks, so it's a little bit confusing right there. But if this is Life Orb Garchomp, it can get off a huge outrage right here. If it's not, it can go for the Earthquake or Dragon Tail, predicting the switch from Lefty's end. And if Lefty's does switch into like Rotom Wash per se, and GeeMick Dragon Tails that Rotom, that's going to be really big for him, especially if he can bring in that Talonflame, because then it'll be forced to take those Stealth Rocks before Excadrill gets a chance to U-turn. And considering the fact that GeeMick did use Stealth Rocks with his Garchomp, and we're assuming that the Lando-T does not have Stealth Rocks, double Stealth Rocks would have been insane, and that means that once the Excadrill spins, those rocks are gone forever. So GeeMick has to be really aggressive if he wants to maintain those Stealth Rocks versus Lefty's team, and those Stealth Rocks could be really huge in wearing down the Venusaur, and more importantly that Talonflame, which can just have free reign to switch in whenever it can, really. I mean, because like, if it's bulky, it might be able to switch in on the Metagross's Meteor Mashes and then threaten a Will-O-Wisp, which GeeMick has no switch-ins for. And Lefty's is also still maintaining the threat with that Keldeo, and right now, if GeeMick can eliminate that Venusaur, his Breloom has a very, very good chance at just pounding at Lefties' team and putting a ton of pressure, essentially making Lefties have to sack him on every time it comes in, because he can just kill the Rotom Wash and he threatens a Spore on a Talonflame switch, and he can kill everything else essentially. So the Breloom is a big threat if he can remove the Venusaur. If he also removed this Tyranitar, the Hoopa would have become a big threat, because then he would have, because then he would have no answers to the, because then he would have no Psychic switch-ins really. Excadrill is not very a solid Psychic switch-in, as Hoopa is quite strong, as Lefties actually pulls the switch into Keldeo, as GeeMick goes straight for the Earthquake and finishes off the Keldeo. So Lefties decides it's time to let the Keldeo go and bring in the Excadrill. This works out really well for him, because the Rapid Spin should kill the Garchomp right here. And the worst that can happen is that Lefties will take Rocky Helmet and Rough Skin as he removes the Stealth Rocks, which is very, very good for him. I don't know if GeeMick would be quite willing to let his Garchomp go away just yet. He might choose to go into his Lando-T as he does. And I really like this play, because this gives him the opportunity to set up Stealth Rocks on the T-Tar, on the Rotom Wash, on the Venusaur as well. And those Stealth Rocks can be quite big, and if the sand is not up there, then there's the possibility of the Garchomp threatening the Excadrill quite a bit more. Although if it is Tank Chomp, it would underspeed any Excadrill in the sand. So we actually see that the Excadrill is Life Orb, which means it'll be hitting quite a bit harder, but it'll also be more easy to stall out. And I could easily see GeeMick going for a U-turn right here. It seems quite obvious to me. And Lefties might want to try to capitalize on the obvious U-turn. He might actually pull a switch in Talonflame, because GeeMick, if he goes for the Stone Edge, that would be insane. That would be absolutely insane. And Lefties only has two Earthquake switches, the Rotom Wash and the Talonflame. I could easily see him going to the Talonflame, because not wanting to take a U-turn with his Rotom Wash plus the sand, which would be annoying. It might actually even kill, depending on how strong the Lando-T is invested. But this is actually, oh my god. this is quite an interesting game, actually. I'm really interested by GeeMick's team choice with the Starmy, Metagross, and the Hoopa. It's very quite interesting, but there is the Talonflame as, oh my god, GeeMick goes for the Swords Dance. Now this is a problem for Lefty's team. This is a huge problem, provided he hits the Stone Edge right here. Oh, there's the outspeeding with the Will-O-Wisp, and GeeMick goes for the Stone Edge, kills off the Talonflame. And now we have a Lando-T, which is burned, but it is at +2 attack, and it can do a ton of damage to any member on Lefty's team. The only one that can like tank, I think only Venusaur would be able to avoid an Oko from this Lando-T at this point. And Lefty's is gonna have to play smart to maybe try to revenge this. Oh, he actually goes to the Rotom. Can the Rotom live the Stone Edge? I mean, if this is Adamant, this could be Adamant Double Dance Lando-T. And I don't know, physically defensive Rotom is bulky, but I don't know if it's bulky enough to take less than 42 from a Stone Edge. I mean, because the Burn and the Swords Dance do neutralize each other. And actually, I could imagine the Rotom taking it. I'm sure Lefty's has calced it. I mean, it might probably do like around 34 of 40 maybe? 35 to 40? I could see that happening. I don't know if it'll hit 42 though. That could actually be a very difficult roll, and I'm sure that GeeMick is calculating the Stone Edge right now. But if he can take out the Rotom Wash, that would be very, very good for him. And this is looking a little tricky for GeeMick's end, but if he can kill this Rotom Wash, that would be very, very good for him. And he really needs to eliminate that Venusaur. If he can do that, then the Breloom will be able to check the Excadrill quite better. And now that the Lando-T is burnt, if it switches out and comes back in, it's really not that useful, because now it's burnt, and now it'll be forced to Swords Dance just to even have the normal amount of damage output that it would have, and that's just wasting a ton of turns, and it's not really accomplishing much. So really, GeeMick needs to try to break that. Oh, he actually pulls a switch into Breloom on the Hydro Pump. Now, Lefty's gets that little bit of leftovers recovery with the Rotom Wash, and he does pull the double. Does he get it correct? Yes, he does. So GeeMick is able to get the double onto the Venusaur, and this was a free Stealth Rocks for him right here. And now he really needs to be careful with how he pressures that Excadrill to try to prevent another spin. And he can use these Stealth Rocks to his advantage to weaken that Venusaur quite a bit, as he actually brings in his Metagross. And this is a major threat to Lefty's team. If he is running Zen Headbutt, sometimes they choose to forgo Zen Headbutt for coverage like Thunder Punch, Ice Punch, Bullet Punch, Hammer Arm, stuff like that, like trying to run different combinations. If he doesn't have Zen Headbutt, then this Venusaur will be able to get damage on the Metagross, putting it in range of Life Orb Excadrill's Earthquake. As Metagross is so tanky, I think it can tank a Life Orb Excadrill's Earthquake. And that's insane. I know it can tank Air Balloon very, very easily, and I think it can tank Life Orb without any prior damage at all. And Lefty's Rotom Wash with the Stealth Rocks will most definitely die to a Zen Headbutt. T-Tar will die to a Meteor Mash. Venusaur, well, if it's physically defensive, I could see it living a Zen Headbutt, but I'm not sure if it would. And yeah, I could see it living a Zen Headbutt, but I'm not sure if it would. And the Excadrill, it'll die to Hammer Arm or even Earthquake. And really it needs to try to come in with Sand up on something else. So either Lefty's has to sack members to get up Sand, maybe he can pull an aggressive switch into T-Tar here on a Zen Headbutt, and then sack something, or just go straight to Excadrill and take the Meteor Mash damage. But I don't know how I overlooked this, but like Metagross is looking up to be a big threat now that the Talonflame has gone. Especially, he has no option to try to Will-O-Wisp this, even though once Metagross gets off the Mega Evolution, it would outspeed that Talonflame, which is it would outspeed that Talonflame, which is really quite trouble from. So this Metagross is actually a big problem to Lefty's team, and he really needs to play the Excadrill very well and the Venusaur very well. That's how Lefty's is going to win this game. GeeMick, he needs to play his Metagross very nicely, just break through Lefty's team, and he can do that quite easily. And with the Breloom, he just needs to be careful. If he gets a little too happy with the doubles on the Venusaur, and Lefty's is able to catch GeeMick on a double that was really not needed, then maybe he'll be able to pull it back. But both have 4 Mons, so if this becomes a sacking game, I think this is in GeeMick's favor because he has the momentum right here, as he actually goes for the Meteor Mash and misses on the Rotom, so the Rotom gets that little bit of leftovers recovery, and it might be able to live a Zen Headbutt right now, but I mean, it is Stab Zen Headbutt from a Mega Metagross, so I kind of doubt that it'll live a Zen Headbutt from the Mega Metagross, but that Meteor Mash is quite annoying for GeeMick if it does not kill, or if he doesn't have Zen Headbutt, and maybe he wanted to kill this off with a Thunder Punch the following turn. And that really loses a lot of momentum for GeeMick, as he actually pulls a switch into Tyranitar. Does he go for the Zen Headbutt? Yes, he does! So Leftiez capitalizing off of that Meteor Mash miss very nicely, because 2 Meteor Mashes, depending on the damage, GeeMick might have gone for a different attack. But this is very good for Leftiez right here, and does he pull the switch back into Rotom? Yes, he does, and GeeMick just goes for another Meteor Mash, and now this Rotom, that did 14%, so I think he's just gonna go for another Zen Headbutt here, and the Extra Drill will be able to come in. Once again, the Garchomp is gone, so there will be no more Stealth Rocks if that Excadrill chooses to spin, but I think at this point in the game, spinning is not a priority for Leftiez. He really needs to hit hard with that Excadrill and win, as the Zen Headbutt does not miss, takes out the Rotom Wash, and in comes the Excadrill. Now, the Excadrill could go for the Earthquake. It could also go, well, I mean, actually, GeeMick, I don't know the calc. You guys will see the calc. I'll leave the calc down here below, but it's Life Orb Excadrill. I haven't seen Life Orb Excadrill in quite some time, but I know my prior knowledge tells me that Metagross can tank Excadrills from the Earthquake. I don't know if he can tank an Adamant Life Orb Excadrill's Earthquake, because that's very, very strong, but it might be able to, as he actually pulls a switch into Hoopa, just sacking it, as Leftiez does go for the Iron Head. This gives him a free switch into the Lando-T, I guess, right here. Or he could go to his Breloom, as he does go to his Lando-T. Now the Lando-T does not have U-turn, so he can't just go for the U-turn. He'll have to either pull a double, or he'll have to go for the Earthquake, and Leftiez might choose to just go for the Venusaur right here, as he does. And GeeMick just goes straight for the Earthquake, and it does nothing to that Venusaur. 18% did absolutely nothing. Wow. That 18%, that's so little. That must be a really, like, Lando-T is burned, but it's also quite strong, so that indicates to me that it's not Earth Plate Lando-T. And ooh, we see a double from Leftiez into the Tyranitar, as GeeMick goes straight into his Metagross. Now this could be just another kill for GeeMick, and Leftiez really needs to preserve this Sand, because I don't think he can win in 3 turns of Sand with that Excadrill, but he also needs to preserve his Venusaur. I think Leftiez really needs a Meteor Mash miss. That's the only way that he can really take down this Metagross, because he needs all the Mons he has left. He needs T-Tar to set up the Sand, he needs Excadrill to abuse the Sand, and he needs the Venusaur so he can beat the Breloom, and I guess also take on the Lando-T a little bit better. As if GeeMick can just go straight for the Meteor Mash here, he has no qualms with that, and if Leftiez brings in the Excadrill, it's 1 step closer to oh my god, so sorry guys, that's my screensaver right there, but he's just 1 step closer to just finishing off that Excadrill. It takes Life Orb damage every turn it attacks, and GeeMick, once the Excadrill goes down, GeeMick can just win with the Metagross. Plain and simple, he just wins with it. So he actually goes for the Meteor Mash and kills off the T-Tar. He actually gets an attack boost too, but that's not too big, as the Excadrill comes in. Now all GeeMick has to do is stall enough turns of this Sand. The only other way I could see Leftiez somehow win is if the Metagross does have Hammer Arm, and if GeeMick decides to like sack off his Breloom, like let's say he goes to Lando-T here and Leftiez goes for the Iron Head and like kills out the Lando-T in like 2 turns or something, and like GeeMick brings in the Breloom to force out the Excadrill so that the Metagross can win. If Leftiez switches his Excadrill in on the Metagross on like a miss or something, switches back to his Venusaur on a Hammer Arm, then Excadrill would be able to outspeed the Metagross and be able to get a kill be able to kill the Metagross, actually, if it gets off a little bit of chip damage with the Venusaur, or maybe just kill it, as he does go for the Iron Head, and this will take out the Lando-T right here, as in comes Breloom, I presume, and now, ooh, I don't know if GeeMick would pull the double right here, as he does not pull the double. He just goes for a safe Mach Punch. And this is the situation I was talking about. I mean, GeeMick can go for a Swords Dance right here if he has it, and try to keep this Venusaur weaker so that it's more in range of Zen Headbutt. But if the Excadrill comes in on like a miss, and then he goes back to his Venusaur on a Hammer Arm, then, because then the Metagross will be slower, and then the Excadrill would be able to outspeed it. As GeeMick does not have, he does not have the Sword Stance. He has actually has the Rock Tomb. So I think Leftiez is just gonna get up to full. Right? Oh, he actually just kills the Metagross. I think if I was Leftiez, I would have just recovered up to full. Maybe he was trying to catch GeeMick on a choke and switching into his... Oh, he might have been trying to catch the Metagross on the switch, as he does not try to pull a switch into Excadrill. I might have gone for the Excadrill and gone for the miss, as... Oh, it actually has Ice Punch, which is able to kill Excadrill from the range it is at. So GeeMick maneuvers with the Metagross really quite well, and the Hydro Pump miss on the T-Tar was really big. It gave Leftiez a bigger chance in this game, but I think actually GeeMick's Metagross was a really major threat. I don't know how I overlooked that, and the fact that he weakened the Rotom Wash so early with that Psychic as Leftiez went for the Hydro Pump was really a pivotal play. GeeMick, that was a really good play, because GeeMick realized that Leftiez would not go for the Volt Switch right there, considering he had that Garchomp still lurking. And I think Leftiez should have gone for the Volt Switch right there. That would have been very big play, as GeeMick just, he made the right play, he made the right call. He Psychicked the Rotom, got it weak, put it in range of Metagross's hits. He removed the Talonflame, which was like the only possible like chance that Leftiez would really have. I mean, he removed Keldeo as well. I mean, Keldeo couldn't really do much, and he just found an opportunity to Mega Evolve that Metagross so that he could outspeed a non-Scarf Keldeo, outspeed the Talonflame, and outspeed everything on his team other than Excadrill and Sand. And really, the thing about the Excadrill and Sand is that you have to keep setting up the Sand with Excadrill. If Excadrill was as fast as it was without the Sand, then it would be much harder to play around in endgames like these. But because of the way it needs the Sand, it really allows the opponent to try to abuse that fact and put pressure on both the T-Tar and the Excadrill. It's kind of like the T-Tar is only there to set up the Sand, and the Excadrill is only there to like abuse the Sand. So it kind of makes it like it's a two-mon way. It's kind of like if GeeMick has one threat, he has the Metagross as his major threat, and Leftiez has his Excadrill as his major threat. Well, it's not just Excadrill, it's Excadrill and T-Tar that's Leftiez's major threat, but it's not like they're two separate threats. They work together, and without one, the other falls apart. Without the Excadrill, the T-Tar is not really doing much, because the T-Tar is losing its value for setting up Sand for the Excadrill, and without the T-Tar, there's no Sand for the Excadrill, and it can't really do much. So yeah, that's it. GeeMick was able to pull through that game really well, and I think the Psychic on the Rotom Wash was the highlight play of that game. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I sure did, and I'll see you guys later.